come here and visit these grandma. They used to babysit for your mother. They babysat. We went to the Caribbean for a week once, and they babysat.
No, it's over here, baby. It's that way.
Got so many keys, so you don't know which one to take. Yeah, I know. That's for a present.
That may be the only time in your life you kiss a 100-year-old person.
That's right.
Know that?
Next year it'll be 101.
Could be.
The only time. Hopefully.
Yeah, can you imagine?
Hopefully.
I don't know. If you look on the bottom, let me show you. I don't know who gave that to me. I don't know who it was. Holy. Or, no, I'm talking about, what do you call it? What year again? What the hell is it? What are you looking for? From the Houston. One of you guys
Oh, yeah, no, I've seen that. I know what you're gonna show me, I saw all of that.
Did you give it to me?
No, I think Jackie gave you that.
Oh.
But I saw that, it's got the pictures of them towing to Houston, you know. And all
Yeah,
that.
they were towing it and so on.
Yeah. Let me go.
What do you know? There's the cars in those days.
Good.
Okay.
I'm very, very
No, I
glad
know.
to see you
I'll
boys.
remind them, sir.
Well, look who's here. My goodness. Are we all going to the Yankee Stadium?
Yeah.
Everybody?
Everybody.
Everybody into the car.
Alright, let's go.
We could do a little more
Let's talk
tomorrow.
them tomorrow then.
I
At the table.
like you.
Grandpa, you were bar mitzvah?
He didn't tell you
Instead of
about
us,
when
you
he
were
used to
bar mitzvah?
play.
We should do, just think who, they're doing that? Taking nice pictures?
No, they're taking
don't
it,
touch
and I'm
the
paying
chair.
for it too.
Oh, okay. You're paying for it.
Part of it.
So-
photographer.
So what year were you born? Let's start with that.
1911.
1911.
August 25, 1911. Officially, my birthday will be next Thursday.
Next Thursday? Okay. So where were you born?
Broome Street, New York City.
New Broome Street, New York City? Okay. And tell me about your parents. Where are they from?
They originally come from really Poland originally. It's called Bialystok. You may have seen that in the movies. That they had that in the pictures before. Then Russia took over, and that was the end of Poland with Bialystok.
Oh, I got you. Okay. And
There's a small town that they came from, and my grandmother owned a bakery. And they used to take loaves of bread and stick it out on the porch. So when the Cossacks came on horseback, they came with the sabers. They used to stab the thing.
the bread?
Right. And they loved my grandma.
Oh, really? Because
Because
she
she
used to give them
would
bread?
took care of them. She really did. They really thought, well, a Jew was out of luck in those days. But they liked her because they were Jews. Made no difference to them. The bread, that's more important.
Right, well,
And
that's...
but they used to ride past on the horses, and with the sober, they used to stab the bread and ride away.
Really?
Yeah, that was the.
Unbelievable.
My mother always used to tell me that story.
What time, what year did they come over here then?
They must have come over about in 1902 or 3.
Okay, okay.
I'm not sure. And my parents, my mother and my mother anyway came to not Ellis Island, but she came to Castle Gardens. Castle Gardens is where the Revolutionary War, the battery has a building there that used to be a fort, and that was in opposite Ellis Island.
Oh, I
Ellis
gotcha.
Island was in the middle of the water. This was at the end, right near the battery.
You came on a boat?
Oh yeah, they came by boat. As a matter of fact, if you look up there, there's my mother and father. The picture on the thing there.
Oh, over here? Oh, I got you.
Yeah, that was taken 100 years ago, would you believe it?
Wow. So before you were
100
born?
years ago they were married.
Yeah. Before you
Unbelievable.
were born, I guess. So you were born right after, I guess.
Well, a little bit later. Of course, when I was born, it was in 1911,
Yeah.
and my mother was always, she was 4'11". She was a small
Wow.
woman, but very petite, very, yeah.
That's where Jessica got all
And what the
height.
funny part of it was, when I was born, I was 10.5 pounds. From a little woman of 4'11". So when the doctor pulled me out, I had 2 big holes over here. And my mother was frantic, so the doctor said, "Don't worry, he'll grow up and it'll go away." And that's what happened. It went away.
Where were you born?
You
In a
want to
hospital?
shut it off? The last one.
Where were you born? Which hospital?
On Broome Street. Oh, no, it's no hospital. It's a doctor and a midwife.
Oh, you were born at home.
Oh, home,
No,
yeah.
cool.
Oh, home birth?
127 Broome Street was the address of where I was born. Then he was born in a Jewish Memorial Hospital on Broadway in the Dyckman Street area. Jackie was born,
That's he.
Jackie was born Bronx Hospital. I think it's Bronx Lebanon today. And Bruce was born in it was the Salvation Army Hospital. It's called New York Hospital today on Main Street in Flushing.
Okay.
That's-
Oh, Booth Memorial. Yeah.
So if you were born in 1911, that puts you at 20 years old in 1931,
Yeah.
right?
As a matter of fact, when you come to think of it, my father-in-law was strictly against me. He told his daughter,
Tell them why, though.
A musician, they're bums. They gamble, they drink,
Well, that's
they
pretty-
run around with women.
Oh, boy.
He says to her, "What are you bothering with him?" Well,
You were also 7
And the
years.
age difference.
You were 7 years older too, right?
how much?
You were 7 years older than.
Oh, I was 7 years
Yeah.
older than her. As a matter of fact, my mother said to me, she says, "Irving," she said, "you're 22 years old. What are you doing with a 15-year-old girl that's still going to school?
All right.
What do you got in common?"
That's true.
Yeah.
If that was my daughter, I'd be freaking out.
So I said, "Ma, there's something about Pauline. I don't know what it is.
Do
In
you know
spite
what
of
it
the
is?
fact that she was only 15, she was very well developed. Besides that,
Yeah.
so that was better.
That she was.
That was better than the 15 years old. But that went on for the longest time until we got married. I think she was 24 and I was 31. But that was the romance.
Oh, so that's when you were married, 31. I didn't even mean to imply that.
Well,
Okay. All right.
That's what I carried on with her.
And
So
so
he was 31 years of age when they got married.
Oh, 31, not 1931, right.
I was 31
Right,
when
so
she
10
was
years
24.
afterwards.
Oh, yeah.
Right, I catch you.
might
So you
wanna
met
cut
her
the
around
interview
then.
short
Right.
if they're here.
Then of course they called
So
me
you're
from the
not-
draft
you
board.
Continue it later.
That's why we decided, not the first time. The first time they called me, they called me down to the draft board and they told me I'm deferred because I was supporting my mother. I had no father. I was supporting my sister. And I don't think Bruce was born yet. No, he wasn't born yet. Just those two. So you're deferred for a year. But the following year, we're taking married men. We're taking everybody. Nobody's being exempt
For
anymore.
World War II?
Then
World War II,
World
right?
War II. So when I went in, I was afraid. I didn't want to go into the army. I said, the guy said to me, "What do you want?" I said, "I want the Navy." So he says, "Well, you know, the Navy, you could be a Marine too. That's part of the Navy." I said, "Well, whatever it is." I said, "But I don't want the Army." When I went back and told my wife, she hit the ceiling. "You can't swim. Why did you pick the Navy?" I said, "Because I don't want to dig any foxholes, and I don't want the filth and the dirt that goes with the Army when they go into wherever they go. At least on a ship, it's halfway decent."
Yeah.
That's why I picked and they put me in as I said, in the Navy, not the Marines.
Right.
They put me in the Navy, and I did my job or whatever I was doing. So I went to bat from Sampson, New York, to Los Angeles. To Los Angeles, I got off on another ship and went to San Diego. And in San Diego, we were on our way to Hawaii. So I said to the guy on the ship, I said, where are we going? He said, well, you guys are on a sea draft. You're going to be on tanker duty. I said, oh, that's all I need is tanker duty. So, hey,
He's just looking.
hey, where'd you come from?
Go say hello. Go, you can go give him a kiss now.
Where'd you come
All
from?
right. So last time, when we were here earlier this morning, we were, I think, about 1931.
What?
We were at 1931 last time when we were talking. You were saying you were 20 years old. You were talking about.
Oh, when we got married?
That's right. You were talking about that.
I was 24 when I got married.
Oh, you were 24.
I'm sorry. My wife was 24, and I was 31.
Okay. Okay. So, do you remember the Depression back then?
The Depression?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, I was in the middle of it.
You were? What was that like?
The only advantage that I had, I worked as a margin clerk, but all I could get was $50 a week. But the music, I worked at the townhouse, Huntington Townhouse. I was in the house band there. So I used to average from $200 to $300 a weekend. That's why I took the job for $50 a week.
That's a lot of money.
You're telling me, but I worked hard.
Who were you?
I was working like sometimes on a Friday night. Most of the times it was Saturday afternoon, Saturday night, Sunday afternoon, Sunday night. 4 jobs, 2 days. Sometimes it was 5 jobs, counting Friday. It was all according, not all the time. But that's what the situation was. And when the money I was making, everybody was, if they were working, they made $25 a week. Big deal. That's what during the Depression. It's just now it's just as bad as it was then. Although I think this time, I don't know which is worse. I don't feel it. I just hope they don't do anything with the Social Security.
You mean taking it away?
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about because that's what I live on.
Yeah.
My Social Security and my disability government check. Combined at least to make almost $2,000 a month.
Why do you get a disability check?
Why?
Yeah.
Because I was disabled in the Navy. They started me off, they wanted to give me 100%. I said, no, wait a minute. 100%, a guy can't walk, he's in a wheelchair, he lost an arm, he lost a leg, he lost something. That's a 100% disability. Just want them to leave me alone. All right, I'll get you 50. I said, I want 30. So he said, the guy at where I interviewed, 30%, you got it. They never bothered me after that.
So, you were working in music throughout the entire Depression, or when did you enter the war?
I entered the war in February of '44.
Okay.
I went up to Sampson, New York. That's where the base camp for the Navy was. And from there, I went to California.
Went to California, and then that's where you're...
And I went on to Los Angeles. And from Los Angeles, we went on a ship. We went to San Diego. In San Diego, we went on a ship with what they call a draft of tanker duty. Tanker duty? Who the hell wants to be on a tanker duty carrying all those explosives, you know?
Yeah.
But when I was on there for a while, I hear music. So where the hell is that coming from? So I go back at the back part of the ship, and sure enough, there's a band playing underneath the bridge where the captain was. His pet peeve was music. Every afternoon, according to them, at 4 o'clock, the band had to rehearse. Whatever they did. Who was the leader? A doctor, a lieutenant. He played a trumpet you shouldn't know from it. It's like playing a douchebag. It was ridiculous. So I said to the drummer, he's a young kid, I said, could I sit down and play? So he said, what, are you a drummer? I said, yeah. He said, sure, go ahead. So when I sat down and started to play with the band, the lieutenant looks at me. How would you like to become a member of the crew and be in the band? I said, you can do that? You certainly can. He says, well, in that case, I said, I will do that. He took me up to the commander's office, signed the paper. 1, 2, 3, I was a member of the crew. And then, from that, I became the leader.
Of the band?
Right. That was a captain's pet peeve. If I wasn't there at 4 o'clock, gee, it was hell to pay with him. He was really something. But this time we went to Hawaii. So when we got to Hawaii, there was a band leader called, I don't know if you remember, Claude Thornhill. He was an orchestra leader. He was like famous, like maybe not as famous as Benny Goodman or Gene Krupa, one of those guys. So we started futzing around. So he says to me, you become a member of the crew. He says, you don't have to do any hard work. All you have to do is rehearse the band at 4 o'clock. Be there at 4 because the captain is very strict. So I said, okay, I said, I'll do that. When I spoke to this Claude Thornhill, he says, if you want to join the band, that was a big band then. It's like Benny Goodman or Artie Shaw, Glenn Miller, one of those guys. He says, you have to join the Navy for 4 years. You have to join the Navy all over again. So just, thank you very much, and I walked out. He was at the Diamond Head in Honolulu, the famous mountain or whatever that it was. But we were playing, of course, and it was just, we did what we were supposed to do until we got torpedoed. Then it was a different story.
Torpedoed, where were you when you got torpedoed?
We were about 80 miles off the coast of Formosa, which is now Taiwan. So the captain gave the order, abandon ship, because the ship was this way. It wasn't this way, it was this way from the torpedoes. So I said, I'm not going to jump. It's too high to jump into the water. I had a life jacket, which one of the Marines gave me, a jacket. They called it a Mae West jacket. It's a regular jacket, big high collar. Kept you afloat, no question about that. So I put that on, and then I slid down the rope. And I reached out and grabbed this rope, cork, and something else. It was all floating. There was about 25 guys hanging on to that. Some guys were sick. They pushed them up on top of that because they were seasick. Now, why they were seasick, it wasn't rough. But hey, who the hell knows? Anyway, this thing went on and on. And then, of course, I came home and I went back to the music and was doing these club dates and all that. So I'll tell you, one time I was doing a club date at the Pennsylvania Hotel in Manhattan. Nobody knows this. I never told anybody, neither my family nor the musicians. But I was doing the club date with this band that I was with, and between sets, a young man comes over to me. He says, I'd like to talk to you. I didn't know him from a hole in the wall. He said, I want to ask you something. I said, yeah, what is it? He said, how would you like to join Jimmy Dorsey's orchestra? We're leaving for Chicago in 10 days, and we're going to the Ambassador Hotel. So when he said that, what came to my mind was Pauline told me, one of these days, he said, you're going to go on the road or wherever you're going to go, and when you're going to come back to the house again, you're not going to find me. I'll take the kids, I'm getting out. So when I heard that, I know she wouldn't do it, but I got scared. She's sort of like hanging over my head to have something like that to happen. When I said to the guy, I'm not interested, I'll never forget the expression on his face. You refuse to go with Jimmy Dorsey? I said, what's the big deal? He went like this. He said, I can't believe it. Then he walked away. Never asked me anything. It was strictly a pickup band. Now, he was a contractor for Jimmy Dorsey, and he went to picked out all the best musicians, trombone, trumpet, piano, guitar, whatever the instrument was, he picked out the pickup band. Because when Dorsey became very famous, he had a set band. Helen O'Connell, I think, was a singer, and there was another, I forgot the guy's name, he's also a singer. That was the #1 band. Wasn't what he wanted. He had a club date for a couple of weeks, maybe 2 to 3 weeks, at the Ambassador Hotel in Chicago. And he wanted just a pickup band just to fill in for the couple of weeks. So when I said no, he couldn't believe it.
Yeah, jeez.
He was
So,
huge.
I'm a little bit,
What?
I'm still thinking about this torpedoed ship thing. I can't believe that happened.
What
So,
do you mean you can't believe it happened? There's a torpedo plane came over. The ship that was torpedoed before us was a ship called the Canberra. It was the same color that we had. Now, when that was torpedoed, it wasn't sunk, but it was disabled, just like we were disabled. But the captain volunteered his whole ship to go to where the Canberra was torpedoed. And he took the whole crew. He got 3 destroyers, escorted us to where the ship was torpedoed. Well, we got there, and I think the Japanese thought that was the same ship that they had torpedoed the night before. But it wasn't. It was the same color. They didn't know the difference anyway. As a matter of fact, the Japs didn't know their ass from their elbow when it came to that. So we of course, we were torpedoed again. This time, the ship was righted. From sideways, it went straight. So the captain wanted the whole crew back on the ship. And we went into one of the ports there, one of the small islands, went into port for repairs. So Admiral Nimitz, he said, you don't need everybody on the ship. Take the engineers, take the watermen, take the certain men, but technical men, that is important. Musicians you don't need. Certain things you don't need. They're not equivalent to run the ship. So let the others go home, take the men that you need, and that's what he did. So we got transferred. When we got back, I went on a ship, and we were going. Where we were going, I don't remember. But one thing I remember: when we were transferred from one ship to another, this was when I was scared. I wasn't scared when the torpedo hit. It didn't even bother me. You know, I said to myself, we'll make it, I'm sure. So, the funny part was that they have what they call a Jacob's ladder. It hangs over the side of the ship. It looks like a net, and you can climb up like a ladder. It covers a very wide area. When I got to that point, I started to climb up, going from one wing to the other. I got halfway up. I couldn't pick up my hands. I was exhausted from being in the water 5 hours, between the salt water and the oil and all that crap that was going on. I fell back into the water again. So this time I said, it's not going to take me away. So I stuck my hand into one of the nets, and I put my elbow in there, holding on like this. 2 sailors on the ship that happened to be one of our destroyers. They said, they bent down, they said, what's the matter, sailor? Can't you make it? I said, no, I'm too weak. Hold it, we'll send down something to put you in. What did they send down? A potato sack with 2 ropes on one on each side. They said, lower it down and get in. I climbed in, they pulled me up, and they put me back on the ship. Thank heaven, I was saved.
You said you couldn't swim?
And I couldn't swim. All the time that I was in the Navy, I was always a sea swimmer. And a sea swimmer had to be constantly for instructions. But the way we were moving around from one ship to another, no. So when we got transferred from one ship to another ship, I went in the seat, and the seat, they pulled me across. That's when I got scared. I said, what if the rope breaks and I fall in the water? That's the only thing that came to my mind. But we got across all right, went on this other ship. After we rode around a while, I don't know where the heck we went, we were transferred again from the ship that I was on to another ship. And the other ship was a transport, an Army transport ship. Got onto that ship, and they told me that you don't have to do anything, but we'd appreciate it if it's served in the kitchen. So I went to the back of the serving where they have the trays and all the food in it. I was still shelling out mashed potatoes. That was my job.
So what did you do after the war?
Then after that, when we finally got to San Francisco, first thing I did was call Pauline. It was around 12 o'clock there, and it was 3 o'clock here in New York. Was she excited when she heard my voice? She didn't know what the heck happened to me, because she didn't hear from me for quite a while. And
Like
she was
weeks
scared.
or
You know what?
quite a while? You mean like days, weeks, or?
Weeks, days. It was a long stretch. Let's put it that way. So I finally put me on on San Francisco Treasure Island. It was called. I don't know if it's still there today. I don't know. So I was in Treasure Island. We were in the bunk. So I heard the guys come down. He said, "Don't wake these guys up." And he called off the numbers of the bunks. I was one of the numbers, and there was a couple of other guys. They were rescued too. So they didn't bother us. Tell us, you can go home now. You're going to have 30 days leave, 10 days traveling, which they did. They gave me passage. I was on a train in Oakland, and I got on the train, and from there we went all the way back to Penn Station, New York. But while I was on there, a couple of stops were made along the way, and the police, shore patrol, they called them. They had, they came, let's see your papers. I see some guy may be jumping ship, who the hell, they didn't know. I showed them my papers. Oh, this guy's okay, don't bother him. What else are you going to do? So I went back, and when I got into New York, everything was fine. I came marching in. Pauline didn't even see me. She walked right past me in the house. It was on I was sitting on the couch in the foyer. There was a couch like a daybed. And she come walking in. She kept walking right into the bedroom. So I said, "Where you going?" She was so hysterical, started crying, and she didn't know what the hell to say. Her parents were really whacked up when it came to me, but they didn't bother me. But I had to report back Christmas Day. This was from October something till November, and then December the 25th I had to be in California. So I reported back on Christmas Day. There's nobody around. So where the hell do I go? Christmas Day, the guys were off. The sailors, they weren't doing anything. So I'm walking around. Then I see an officer, a petty officer. He was standing out front of a building. So I went over to him. I said, "I'm supposed to report at the hospital." I said, "I didn't know where to go." I said, everything seems to be closed." He says, "Go inside and get undressed and get into bed." So I looked at him. You can do that? Do what I tell you. I said, "Sure." So I went in like he said.
Well, why was
I
that
went
for?
into bed, and I was there for 5 months,
Well, why?
making tests and tests and
Oh,
tests.
wasn't it because you had some post-traumatic stress?
They didn't know what the heck to do with. They didn't know what to
You were
find
sick,
out.
right? I mean,
What I found out later on, what I had in the First World War, they called it shell shock,
yeah.
and this they call it something else.
Post-traumatic
What I had
stress.
when the doctor examined me, the doctor was an admiral, and he says to me, "You know, Weinstein," he says, you gotta take care of yourself. He said, there's nothing wrong with you physically, it's just that up here. He said, it's a mental condition with you. Go home. And that's what I did. I went home.
Mentally stable ever since.
Right on, boy.
Yeah.
So, do you remember before we had cars going everywhere?
Cars?
Cars, the automobile.
What about it?
Like, when did the first automobiles?
Oh, in 1909, I think. No, 19 that I saw was in 1912.
Car.
A locomobile it was called. The car I had after we lived in the Bronx, and I went into the laundry business with some guy I met up in the country. I had a Hudson. I don't know if you remember a Hudson. It was like a tank.
What year was this car?
Who the heck remembers it? Like 40s, 46, 47,
I was
something
in
like that.
business. You know, they went to
Laundry.
What are you talking about with this business?
Well, I met with my family was up in Milford, New York. It was about 8 miles from Connecticut. I was up there, and I had a job at the hotel. It was called the Cedars Country Club in Connecticut. I forgot the name of the town. And weekends I played there. On weekends I played there. I did that for a while, and there was no problem. Everything was fine. I was just going from one place to the other. Every weekend, the kids like the movies that you have, the tape you showed me with Jackie was hiding hiding the bat under the car.
Yeah.
You know, he was a real wumpty dude. Incidentally, did you get him on the phone?
Bruce.
You're being
You got Bruce?
Picking up at 12.
He's picking you up at 12?
Yeah.
Is that what he said?
Yeah.
I wanted to be there before 1 o'clock.
He will be.
Well, I have to call Irene and tell her. She'll pick her up and she'll be ready at 12 o'clock.
Tell them
Anyway,
the
so what about your
story.
business?
Tell them the story you told us before when you were driving the taxi.
But
What
hold
about
on,
the
finish
tax-
Oh.
the business story.
Well, that was.
So you went into business with
Well,
someone
I had
from state?
to, on some weekends I didn't. If I didn't have a club date, my oldest sister-in-law, Frances, her husband was a personal trainer. What they'll call him today. In the Hotel McAlpin, I don't know if it's still there on 34th Street in Herald Square, was a gym, and he gave out instructions to the people that were working over there. So I spoke to him. He says, "Would you like to drive a cab?" I says, "Why not?" So I went down to 21st Street and 7th Avenue. There's a garage there, and I told a guy, Phil Rosenstock, incidentally, his brother, Larry Stock, wrote Blueberry Hill. I don't know if you remember. You hear that number every now and then.
That's
You hear it
Domino,
every-
Blueberry
It's a
Hill.
very popular number. Still to the, after all these years, that number is still being played.
Yeah,
And a
that's-
very famous number who played like that, Fat Swallow. Fat Swallow was a piano player, a wacky guy if there ever was one. But he made that so popular, it was number one for the longest time. Anyway, I was on the. I used to hack one Sutton place. It's right downtown in the
Very fancy, very
neighborhood.
exclusive. Rich people.
So I used to have, the doorman knew me, didn't know my name, but he knew me from the cab there. I had a fellow by the name of, always went to Park Avenue, with George S. Kaufman. He was the producer of Guys and Dolls. He was always went to this Park Avenue up in the 60s somewhere, I don't remember where. And then I had one time Katharine Hepburn. She
Really?
came out of that building, and I
Unbelievable.
took her, but she went to Park Avenue further uptown.
Oh, she was in your taxi? Wow.
Taxi, but
Cool.
one time, I was telling them before, this guy came out from what do you call it, from the one Sutton place, and the doorman put his bags in the cab in the back. He sat in the back. Of course, where I was sitting, it's just me. There wasn't a seat alongside like they have today. So he comes in, he says to me, "Young man, He says, I'm going to Idlewild, and I'm going to England.
That was LaGuardia.
I want you to drive over the Triborough Bridge, and I want to enjoy the scenery. So, Idlewild, going over. It's a long way to go, so I said, all right, so whatever you want. I drove him, and when we got to the Idlewild to the airport, I don't remember which one it was. It was an English airline. And he says, you know, driver, he says, you did a very good job. I really enjoyed the trip. He said, I like the way you drive, and I like the fact that you took your time and you wasn't in any rush. And this is for you. He gave me $10. In those days, a tip for a quarter was a big deal. $10. Like I was telling them, I wanted to go home.
What year is this? Or roundabout?
During the Depression, of course.
During the Depression.
Yeah. I didn't know exactly what to say, but after he gave me that tip, I says to myself, hey, not bad. And then I used to hang out all the time in Sutton Place. That was my hangout. The doorman knew me. I mean, people used to have local calls, go to 8th Avenue, go to 6th Avenue. Right, and and they gave me a tip, a quarter. Big deal, but that's what they were. 25 cents. The cab was 15 and 5. That was the cab then. It was 20 cents to get into a cab. What do you pay now? An arm and a leg to get into a cab.
$20 at least.
That's really something. So what did he say, Stephen? I mean, what did Bruce say? Anything else?
No, I told him about Yankee Stadium, and he was very
Have any further
impressed.
questions?
Go on.